As guitar players, we can learn so much from studying the technique and styles of the great guitar players of the world. Now, as a guitar player, the ultimate goal for everyone is to kind of develop your own voice and your own sound. No one really wants to end up as a copycat of their favorite guitar player. But what we can do is we can look to our favorite players and study the techniques and the approaches that they use and take those as part of our own sound. So each guitar player out there, you included, are going to end up as your own sound. And the reason you're going to do that is because you're going to be taking bits and pieces from all of your favorite players and you're going to put them all together in one unique mix that sounds like you. Now, the reason this is always going to be a unique approach is because everyone in this world that plays the guitar is going to approach this with different guitar players in the mix. So it doesn't really matter who your favorite players are, you're probably going to learn something from each one of them and put all that together in your own style. In this video, we're going to be checking out 5 techniques that you can take straight away from 5 great players. This video today is brought to you in partnership with Music Radar. So all of the things that I talk about in this lesson are also listed out in an article that I wrote over on the Music Radar website, which is linked down below in the description, so you can go and check that out as well. That's a great supplement to all the stuff we talk about in this video. So gear-wise, I'm using my Vola Guitars Oz JRM for this video. This is plugged into the TC Electronic Combo Deluxe 65, which is like a twin reverb in a pedal. The overdrive in the video that you're going to be hearing is from the Kernam Ridge overdrive. Now, before I show you the 5 guitar techniques that we're going to be stealing from these great players, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. Currently, 96% of the people who watch my videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you are watching this video and you're enjoying it and you're taking some value from this lesson and you want to see more lessons like this, then please hit that subscribe button, because hitting that button helps me to keep the channel growing, and also it helps me keep you updated on more videos just like this. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be learning is a John Frusciante inspired funk riff. John Frusciante is best known for his time with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's been in and out of the group a lot over the last 30 years, but now he's back with the group once again. This riff idea is kind of based along some of their early, more kind of ferocious funk ideas. This is a cool concept that you can take and apply to your own funk rhythms. The riff we're going to be looking at goes like this. So to play this rhythm, we're doing triplets and eighth notes across alternate beats. So there's a couple of different rhythmic things going on here, and we're also adding in some little lead flourishes. This is very much influenced by Frusciante's love of Hendrix, where you're kind of playing inside of a chord or inside of an idea, and there's these little melodic lead guitar flourishes in there as well. This is something that's quite tricky to get used to doing, but once you kind of see the pattern and how to visualize it, it becomes a lot easier. So first of all, the rhythm we're playing, we're doing triplets on the 1 and 3. So to get used to doing triplets, just mute your strings and do a triplet on each beat. So it's 3 hits per beat there. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. On the 2nd and the 4th beats, I'm playing double stops on the 10 and 12 of the G and B strings. So when I'm combining that with the triplets, I get this. So we've got this alternating rhythm, 1 and a, 2 and 3 and a, 4 and. In the second half of the riff, that's where the little melodic flurry comes in. Now this I'm playing as triplets, but it's coming from the D minor pentatonic scale. So whatever key you're playing this in, you basically use the minor scale of that key to do that same idea. So the first part of it is the same. It's the first part of the riff again. And then across the 3rd and 4th beats, the rhythm of what I'm playing there is still 3 and a, 4 and a. I'm playing a pull off from the 12 to the 10 on the G, and then the 12 on the D. That's my 3rd beat. And my 4th beat is kind of just the opposite. It's 10, hammer on 12 on the D string to the 10 on the G. You don't have to think too much about those little melodic flourishes. They're just kind of detailing on top of the rhythm. The main part of the riff is that funky part. You can kind of improvise your own little fills there. And what I did when I played through the riff is I played a slightly different fill on the second time. So on the second time I did this. That is basically the same as how the first fill started, but this time we're starting on the D string, so we're pulling off 12 to 10 and going to 12 on the A, and we're just doing that over 2 beats. Once again with the triplet feel. On the third pass of the riff, I just played the same thing as the first time, and then on the fourth pass, I went up to this double stop here on the 13 of the B and E, and I just played that as triplets. So the core takeaway of this is that the main part of the riff needs to be solid. So lock in the idea of playing then you can start to add little flourishes across each part. So here's what I played slowly. And then we can play that up to full speed once more. The cool thing with this is because it's a funk groove, you can play this at whatever tempo you want, and this shape will actually be able to be moved around the fretboard really, really easily. So here it is at the speed I played earlier. So the second technique I'm going to show you is from the late great Jeff Beck, and we're going to talk about his ability to take a guitar with a tremolo system like this and replicate the sound of playing slide. So I'm going to be using this slide lick, and I'm going to be playing that with the tremolo bar instead of a slide like this. So this is something that is a big part of the Jeff Beck guitar vocabulary. This is actually one of the things that really set Jeff apart from a lot of the other guitar players that he came up with. Many other players would use the tremolo system on the guitar to add vibrato or to kind of create effects like using dive bombs, but what Jeff would do is he'd actually use it as an extension of the notes that he's playing. And by that I mean he would actually target notes with the bar, so raising and lowering the bar to actually go after certain notes. Part of that is he could actually emulate the sort of travel of a note when playing slide guitar. So inside of the slide lick I played, we have a few different things we need to replicate. So first of all, there's the slide up to the 8th fret on the B string. So there's that pitch ramp up to that target note. We need to replicate that with the tremolo. Then I played the 6 on the B and slid down to the 5. So we have one strike of the pick, 2 different notes. So that's something else we need to do there with the tremolo. We need to target a note. Then I slid up to the 7 on the G and added some vibrato. So what we've got to do here is we've got to go up to the 8. Then we've got to actually pitch match a note. And then go up to another note and add vibrato. So the way you would do this in the Jeff Beck style is we'd start by playing that 8. Now we need to replicate a slide into that note. So I'm going to dip the bar before I pick. I'm going to pick the string. I'm going to start on the 6th fret just because that's a bit lower. And as I raise the bar, I'm going to slide and pick at the same time. So we kind of have that ramp up there. Then I want to play the 6, but dip the bar until I find the pitch of the 5. So it's not actually that far to bend it. We're only doing a slight down movement on the bar. So we're going for that sound. It's not going to sound as pitch clear as picking the actual frets. That's okay, we want that slightly vocal movement to it. Then I'm basically doing the same thing as I did at the start of the lick. I'm sliding up to the 7 on the G and basically bringing the bar back to where it was. But then adding that vibrato because that's going to simulate the back and forth movement on the slide. Now Now there's a few important things to remember here. You don't want to go too extreme with the bar. You don't want to go all the way down and really kind of have a huge pitch ramp up. You just want a little ramp up, as if you were sliding up a few frets on a slide. When you're doing the pitch matching from the 6 to the 5, play the 5 and listen to that note. Listen to the pitch, then play the 6 and dip the bar. We're trying to pitch match it by finding that point on the bar. You can hear there that that's slightly too low. That's about right. So you're going for that sound. Once you've replicated that sound, then it's the final slide up to the 7. Now, technique-wise, you're actually already in a position with the bar dipped because you're doing that pitch match. So you can actually just shift to the G and let the bar return as you do that slide. Don't worry if you overextend slightly either side, because when using slide guitar, it is quite easy to slightly overstep the note. That's okay, it's all part of the vocal sound. So here's how that lick sounds in full. The third technique we're going to check out is a John Mayer style chordal technique. So this is basically taking our existing bar chords and allowing us to add different melodic extensions to those chords to give your chord progressions some melodic movement. This can also be seen as a Jimi Hendrix technique because John Mayer basically got a lot of this stuff from the Jimi Hendrix school. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using 2 chords, an A major and an A minor chord. We're going to be playing these in a slightly different way. We're going to be removing some notes from the chord to actually free up a finger to add different notes. So for the major chord, instead of playing it in the traditional bar form, we're going to be focusing on this triad. So it's the 7th fret of the D string, the 6th of the G, and the 5th of the B. That's my A major triad. I'm also at points going to be using the 5th of the high E, so I can play that by barring my index finger like so. The A string I'm not going to use at all, so I can mute that with the tip of my 3rd finger. But then also my thumb is going to play the 5th fret on the low E string as the root. That's also going to help mute that A string. So I've kind of got a bar chord without the 5th, which is the interval that applies on this fret here. So instead of playing this shape, I'm playing this shape. And then for the minor chord, we're going to be using the same system, but instead of playing the shape like this middle finger, which is actually playing the note that makes the chord major, is actually going to get flattened to the 5th fret. So we're actually going to bar there now with the index finger across the G, B and E strings, still playing the 7 on the D with the 3rd finger, and the thumb is still playing the root, and we're still muting the A string. That's now a minor chord. Both of these are A, so it's A major and A minor. The note that determines whether it's major or minor is that middle finger. With the middle finger off, it's minor, and on, it's major. Now the reason it's important to play the chords like this is because it actually frees up the little finger. So if you ever watch John Mayer play, you'll be seeing a lot of this. This melodic idea can be done with that little finger. Now what we're doing here is over the major chord, we're visualizing the A major pentatonic. And we're finding points where that overlaps. So in the case of this chord, it's the 7th on the E and B strings. We can also add the 7th on the G. It's not in the scale, but it's a suspended 4, so we can also use that one as well. But while we're playing, we can use our little finger to go on and off those notes. And that gives us some really interesting Mayer-y sounding major chords. So you'll notice that what I'm doing is I'm basically playing this little melodic pattern along with the chord. but I'm playing that inside of a strummed chord. I'm going to the sus4 there. All I'm doing there is I'm hammering onto the 7 on the B, then playing the chord without, and then back to the sus4. And that time it's the same thing, but I'm using the 5th and 7th on the E string, down to the 7 of the B. You don't have to play it entirely inside of the chord like that. You can also break those ideas out a little bit as well. You can see I'm doing the same thing there, but I'm basically just improvising with the scale around the chord. We can do the same thing for minor, but as we're playing that, we're basically visualizing the minor pentatonic. Now, when we're locked into this shape, our options are slightly more limited with the minor because our little finger can definitely reach the suspended 4, which is the 7th on the G. But to get up to those 8th frets on the B and E is a bit of a stretch. If you can reach for that stretch, then it works great. But otherwise, we can kind of approach this like we did with the second part of the A major and just kind of take it out of the chord. I'm just kind of playing some bluesy licks there inside the pentatonic with double stops. And then just finding rhythmic ways to fit them in with a chord. This is just a really fun concept that you can apply to all the chords all over the guitar. This is a great way to take a chord progression you already have and add some melodic movement to it. It can be a bit of a stretch at first, but take your time with it. Remember, major chords, major pentatonic, minor chords, minor pentatonic. You can actually apply this to an entire chord progression with that same lot. The fourth technique we're going to check out is a technique known as spider chords. This was pioneered by Dave Mustaine of thrash metal giants Megadeth. This is a really cool technique that allows you to move power chords from the A to the E string, or vice versa, without actually having to shift your hand position. We are going to be playing 2 power chords with 1 hand. So it is quite tricky. It sounds like this. So this is a real finger workout because what I'm basically doing is I'm playing a power chord riff that descends on both the E and A strings at the same time. But I'm not actually moving my hand between the adjacent strings like this. I'm actually playing 2 sets of power chords with 1 hand. So on the A string, all my power chords are played with my index finger on the A and my 3rd finger on the D. I'm basically walking chromatically down from the 6th fret. But in between that, I'm actually playing a power chord 1 fret higher, but on the low E string. But instead of doing this, I'm using my middle finger and my little finger. So I'm playing the power chords on the A with the index and ring finger, then the power chords on the E with the middle finger and the little finger. That gives me this shape. So I'm actually able to move between those 2 chords without actually moving my hand. And then I'm also keeping the chromatic downward movement going. In between each of those power chord shifts, I'm putting 2 palm muted open low E notes, but after 3 groupings, I then add 6 open low E notes. You don't have to only use this technique when you're using descending runs like undoing there. You can actually use this any way you want with power chords, but it's a really cool way to jump between A-rooted and E-rooted power chords without actually causing any break in what you're playing. Now, when you're doing this technique, it's a bit tricky because it does involve some hand stretching. When you first start doing this, you will no doubt come across some kind of hand fatigue as you're getting used to stretching your middle finger and little finger over while still keeping the other two fretted. But go slow, start higher up the neck if you need to, and get used to just doing that shape. It can be tricky, but you're basically learning to stretch those two fingers in while keeping the other two in place. And then obviously as you go down the neck, the stretch is going to be wider, so it's going to be more difficult. So start higher up and get used to the stretch, then expand it. So I'm going to play what I played once more slowly. And then once more at full speed. And the final technique we're going to learn is two-handed tapping in the style of Eddie Van Halen. Now the chances are you may have already stolen this one and you're already using this in your own playing. It probably is the most stolen technique, and while Eddie Van Halen did not invent this technique, he's certainly the guy that pioneered it and brought it to the masses. If you haven't already stolen this one, now's your chance to do so. We're going to be doing a really simple tapping lick. It's much easier to do than it looks and sounds. The lick we're going to be playing is this. So this looks and sounds way harder than it actually is. Think of this like an extended range pull-off. I'm actually doing this in the key of A minor, and I'm using the A minor pentatonic scale for this, but this works in any scale, any position. It's an entirely kind of transposable shape that you can use in whichever way you want. So what I'm basically doing is I'm taking these two notes, the 8th and the 5th frets on the B string, and I'm just doing a pull-off. Over and over again, I'm doing a pull-off. With this hand, instead of picking, I'm tapping different notes. So I'm tapping the 12 and the 13 on the B string. We're doing this in triplets. So 1-ander, 2-ander, 3-ander, 4-ander. I'm basically going 1, which is my tap. That starts basically where my pick would be. Pulling off this finger to the 8. And then my pull-off from the 8 to the 5. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing tap, pull off, pull off. I'm just doing that over and over again in triplet. Then I'm moving up to the 13th fret. So it's basically pull-offs and tap notes. It's very, very simple when you actually think of it like that. It's just a two-handed motion that fits into a triplet rhythm. When you actually build up some speed, it sounds really, really impressive and really technical, but as you can see there, it's actually not that hard to do. Now the tap notes in this instance, I'm actually taking from the 3rd shape of the pentatonic scale, on the B string, this 13th fret here, but also this 12th fret, which is the 2nd of the A natural minor scale. It's basically these two notes here on the 8th and 7th frets of the high E string. So we're kind of playing this. But instead of a pick pattern, we're putting these two notes here and tapping them. Now you can apply this logic with other notes from the scale if you want. So if I wanted to tap the 10th fret on the B string, because that's in the A minor pentatonic scale, I can. You can basically use any note from the scale you want to extend your existing lick. Now this works on different strings, different scale shapes, try that out everywhere. Just think of it like triplets. It's an extended range pull-off. That is the technique that Eddie Van Halen brought to the masses, and it's probably one of the most stolen techniques, but if you haven't already stolen it, like I said, do it now. Now is the time to steal that. So there you go. There are 5 techniques that we can steal from great guitar players. I hope you guys have enjoyed this lesson. Let me know down below in the comments how you got on with learning these techniques, but also if there's any techniques that you think are worth stealing from other famous guitar players, put those below as well, because I'd love to hear what techniques you guys are stealing from your idols as well. Don't forget to check out the article in the description that takes you over to the Music Radar website, where you can see written descriptions of everything I've talked about in this lesson. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Like I said earlier on in the video, 96% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed. So if you're getting value from these lessons and you want to see more of these, please hit that button. It means a lot to me. And don't forget to hit the like button as well. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching, as always.